morning, everybody. Whether you are on the East Coast, West Coast, or around the world, this is Football Talk. I'm your host, Bo, and this is our Blue Friday Hawk Talk segment that we do every week. And of course, we finally have the NFL schedule release. There was a little bit of leaks here and there, but for the most part, they did a decent job of doing the release when they said they were going to. A lot of years, some of them get leaked out kind of early. This year, it was just the international games and the holiday games, but the schedule doesn't really do the Hawks any favors. We're going to go through some of this. I do like the schedule. It's a tough schedule. It'll be a good litmus test to how well this rebuild is already happening for the Seahawks. And so we'll see. We'll see if my predictions are right, but it does seem like they are probably a 10-win team. So let's get into this schedule. They start the season off against the Rams. I do think that's a win for the Hawks. The Rams did have a good draft. They will have Stafford back, but they're going to have a lot of young pieces. And I think that the Seahawks will be able to get that win right away. I think the Hawks actually end up with a nice start to the season. They really jump out to probably a number of wins here. They get the Lions second. Now, the Lions, they had some interesting turnover during this offseason, and so they're going to have a lot of new pieces to start. They also start off with KC. They get the first game of the season, so they'll have a little bit of extra time to get ready for the Hawks. But that being said, I still think that the Hawks get the win. Then they go up against the Panthers. This is going to be, in theory, a little bit easier of a game. I do think they get the win there. And then they have the Giants on Monday night. Now, this is going to be a tougher game. This is a game that I think, similar to the Steelers later in the year, could go either way. I have this one written down as a win on Monday night, some of which is because Seattle has a great ability to win on Monday night. Like their Monday night win percentage is I think second all time or first all time. So it's impressive what they're able to do in prime time. And so I think they're able to get that win over the Giants on Monday night for the fourth game. And then this is where they really didn't help Seattle out. They have a week 5 bye week, which for a team that is slated to have the most miles yet again, which is impressive when you think they don't have an international game and they're still going to have more miles than any other team in the league. So for them to have a week 5 bye is unfortunate. It means that the games that are later in the year, if guys are kind of banged up or whatever, there's not going to be any rest to be had. Which, that being said, it makes that Charbonnet pick in the second round getting a running back. I liked the pick anyway, but now it makes even more sense. As hard as it's been to keep a running back healthy all season for the Seahawks over the last decade anyway, now they have a real early bye week. I think that having a second, really starting caliber running back is going to make a ton of sense, being as you're going to have quite a few weeks here without any kind of breaks. So a week 5 bye week, kind of a bummer, but it does give them some extra time into their week 6 matchup with the Bengals. I don't think they beat the Bengals, but that's going to be a tough game. Are they capable of winning? Sure, but I have that listed as one of their losses. And then they get the Cards. I think they beat up on the Cards pretty good. I do think the Cardinals are going to be a little bit better than I thought they were originally going to be. I liked their draft. I like some of the things in their schedule. They have 6 or 7 pretty winnable games. So I have them, instead of the 4 wins that I thought they were going to be, I have them as a 6-win team. That being said, this is not going to be one of their wins. And so the Hawks take care of business over the Cards. And then I also have the Hawks in week 8 beating the Browns. Some of that is we have no idea what the Browns are going to be. On paper, they look like they could be an incredibly, dynamic, well-rounded team. Deshaun Watson is on there. You can't rule him out as a star. This is going to be his first year with the full complement of preseason and OTAs and all of that. So, excuse me. So hopefully, for Browns fans, it comes together, and them giving up as much as they did to get Deshaun, hopefully it makes sense for them. But I have them as a loss to the Hawks in week 8, just because there's still going to be a lot of newer pieces. We really don't know what Deshaun Watson is. He didn't play well last year, and he didn't play the 2 years prior to that. So not a lot of good recent tape. That is a wait and see kind of scenario. But as it sits with the way too early prediction of the season, I have the Hawks beating the Browns in week 8. I do have them taking a loss to the Ravens. That one's a little different. The Ravens are, I had them winning the division last year until Lamar got hurt. So Lamar's back. He's going to be rejuvenated. He's got his new contract. He also has some new toys, right? He's got LBJ back there. And will he be a huge difference maker on every down? No. But will he make a big play a couple times a game? Absolutely. And, if you watch football, you know that it only takes a couple of big plays in any given game to win. So I feel like the Hawks probably take a loss against the Ravens. That I have the Ravens winning that division this year. So I think they're a little bit better than that Bengals team, but I feel like the Ravens probably get the Hawks on this trip. And then versus Washington, I have them beating up on Washington. That's a team that you never know what they're going to be. The only thing you ever really know is that they're going to be inconsistent. Let's see. We got a comment coming through here. Let's see, I'm a Bucks fan, but I think Seattle will have another good season. I hope Geno continues to play well and get better. So I agree with you there. I do think that they're going to have a good season. I feel like that's probably only going to be a 10-win. I know they won 9 last year, but they did have an easier schedule last year. So I feel like they're a 10-win team. And the thing about Geno is what he's been able to do this last season were very duplicatable things. He was making smart decisions, making, good reads, getting rid of the ball when it was in trouble. Didn't make a ton of, questionable throws downfield. And that lends itself well to going into the next season, because those are all duplicatable things, as opposed to him just making some miraculous throws or something like that, honestly can be a one-off. Certainly can be extremely situational, because you need so many things to go right for that to even happen. But the things that he did well last year are things that you should be able to do well year in and year out. So I do think that Geno will continue to be good. Thanks for jumping in, Paul. All right. So then we go to week 11, and that is going to be versus the Rams. And as much as I would like to say they sweep the Rams, they very rarely sweep the Rams. For whatever reason, the Rams are that team that Seattle has just a hell of a time actually completing that win. I feel like the 2 Rams games will be, you could swap them, right? I feel like at the end of the day, Seahawks and the Rams, they're going to split. They split most years. So it's, that's where I have them taking their loss. And then I think that they will get the win on Thanksgiving against the Niners. Obviously they got beat 3 times against the Niners last year. I don't think that'll be the case this time around. That being said, the Niners are definitely still the best team in the NFC West. I'm pretty sure that they are going to win the division. Outside of quarterback, every other position is essentially a Pro Bowl team. So it's hard to pick against them to win the division, with the exception of the fact that they really don't have their answer at quarterback. Purdy is their guy, but he's not back until week 8. Trey Lance is a huge question mark. He's played 4 games in 2 years. Doesn't inspire confidence. You have Sam Darnold as their, projected week 1 starter. But I mean, this is a guy that has not played consistently well anywhere. And he has that stigma of seeing ghosts, from, his rookie season. So if you can get after him, he can make a lot of mistakes. I don't know what their plan is at quarterback, but I know they did sign a 4th quarterback, I believe. But at the end of the day, I think the Seahawks get the win on Thanksgiving. They've done it before. That's kind of the way I'm leaning with it. I do think that they probably split with the Niners this time around. But then they go the next week to another Thursday night game, and that'll be against the Cowboys. So this one is a little bit difficult for me to predict. And it's not all because of the Hawks. Now, I have it listed as a loss, but it'll be December football for the Cowboys. And historically, that is not an awesome month for Cowboys football. So this is a game that could really go either way. I have it slated as an L, but it could easily be a W. Again, I don't trust any Cowboys team in the month of December. It just is not generally awesome. But that being said, they could surprise us and actually play well for the December. But I do have them beating the Hawks. But again, it's December football for the Cowboys, and that could easily be a Hawks win just because the Cowboys can't remember how to play football in that month. And then they have to play San Fran again. So this is kind of a weird scheduling thing where they have San Fran playing 2 out of 3 weeks. This is a game that I kind of wish that the final game against the Cards would have been swapped with this. I feel like that would have been an awesome way to end the season on what is realistically a game that could decide your division winner. But in any event, this is a game that I have them losing against the Niners. It's one of those scenarios. I really don't think that Seattle can beat the Niners twice. I do think that they probably split with them. So similar to the Rams, like you could swap the 2 games as a win or a loss. But I think week 14, they end up getting beat by the Niners. And then they have to go directly from that and play the Eagles. I think that's another loss. That Eagles team was a beast last year, and they had a good draft. They're going to be a better team, which is a scary thought. So I feel that this is probably a loss for the Hawks. The Eagles are my far and away favorite for the NFC Championship game. Not to win the championship game, but to be in it. And then they go from there, and I have them as an L to the Titans. Now, this is a game that I don't feel confident about. This could easily be a win because we don't know what the Titans are. As it sits right now, they still have Tannehill. They still have Derrick Henry. And my reasoning behind this potentially being a loss is the Seahawks, for 3 quarters of the season last year, were giving up record numbers in the rushing game. And although they did make some really good moves in free agency and during the draft to pick up, 5 defensive linemen, do I think they're going to be a, top 5 defense? No, I don't. I feel like they take a step forward, and instead of being the worst team against the run in the league, I think that this unit is probably going to be middle of the road. They're going to be, 14, 15, something like that. And if Derrick Henry is still on the roster, which, is a huge if, so these predictions could obviously change as time goes on. But if Henry is still on that, I don't know that they're going to be enough better against the run to be able to keep him from having a 200-plus yard day. And I also understand that Henry is getting older, but he's still a big dude. He still can move. This is a scenario where it was a weak spot for the Hawks. It's an area of strength for them. If they're still on the roster, I think they can get the win. Now, if they do the opt-out on Tannehill's contract and they do end up trading Henry, then this pick absolutely changes for me. Then I think Seattle can definitely win that game. This is, again, provided that they don't run into any injury issues because of how early that bye week was. So there's obviously some games in here that could really go either way. And then they go and they get to play the Steelers. This is a win for the Hawks. It's a young team. I think the Steelers are incredibly competitive. I think they're just probably another year or two away. Let's see, like the Hawks over Dallas. Yeah, I mean, it absolutely, it definitely could be that definitely could be the thing, just because, again, it's Dallas football in December. So, and then, but yeah, so against the Steelers, I do think that they get the win there. Again, just a young team. They're probably a year or two from being truly competitive. But I mean, we watched them last year. They had some games where they looked really sharp. So this one is going to be a battle for them, but I think they get the win as long as they are relatively healthy. And then they finish the year against the Cards. And this is going to be kind of an interesting game because we don't really know what the Cards are going to be. You're going to have Kyler back, right? They did have a nice offseason. They were able to fill some holes that they needed. I still don't think they're going to be a good team. I still think they're a 6-win team, and this is where the Seattle Seahawks can get a sweep within the division, and the Cards is where they do it. That's probably that's kind of where I think they're going to be, and so that lands them at 10-7, which should be a wild card spot. Looking at the Niners schedule, I think they're probably going to be a 11 or 12 win team. So they will probably come up just short of being able to really challenge for the division, which is why I was hoping that final San Fran game was going to be swapped with that Cardinals game, just because I think that, it could be a spot where it decides the division, or it could decide whether or not the Hawks are in the playoffs or not, just based on, how some of these games are going to come together. But that being said, that's kind of my predictions. Let me know where you think the Hawks are going to be, whether they're in the comments here or, you message me on Twitter as well. But that 10-7 is kind of a comfortable spot to pick for me, just because there's some games on here that are going to be really tough. I mean, realistically, weeks 11 through 15, that is a rough portion of the schedule because the Rams always play them tough. San Fran is one of the better teams in the league. The Cowboys are, they're a stacked roster, and the Eagles are probably the best team in the NFC. So that 5-game series there is going to be a brutal section. And unfortunately, on my prediction, I have the Hawks going 1-4. So hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully they can squeak out a couple of wins through there. But those teams, I feel like, are a little bit further along in their development than this rebuilding. Not even really rebuilding. The return was so quickly, but it was, revamping, we'll say, of this current Seahawks team. So we also, I got an audio clip here from the Rich Eisen show. He was talking to John Schnider, and he had a little bit. He divulged some information there that I didn't think was going to be the case. It sounds like they were on Witherspoon the entire time, and that actually is a shock to me. Again, I thought they were going to go defensive line until they started doing a lot of free agency moving that they don't normally do, and they brought in some D linemen, and they did end up drafting D linemen as well. But the section I want to play here again is from the Rich Eisen show, and so here we go.
Had a great visit with Jalen when we brought him in here. He was in consideration. We just felt that Devin was a better fit for us, and Devin had a great visit with us as well. And so we were just, the physicality part is what really stood out about Devin. Obviously, Jalen has a ton of natural talent. It was just, hey, there's a couple guys that were we call them true. They have to be a blue player on our board, and that means that, and a green player, which means that you have the grit and you're a green guy, meaning that you are a Seahawk. And he had all those things, and so we went for it. He had both of those.
And Jackson.
So that makes it sound like guys like Jalen Carter weren't even really on the list. It sounds like there was a real chance that had they not been able to pick up Witherspoon, they probably would have been moving back in the draft. So that is really interesting. I wouldn't have guessed that. Again, I didn't think they were going to pick him. I thought they were going to still end up going either, D-line, or if Anthony Richardson did make it 2-5, I thought they'd probably pick up a quarterback there. I liked the pick. It actually works really great with the rest of the secondary they've already built and started to develop. That being said, it sounds like they were pretty dead set on Witherspoon from the start. And so that, it's a surprise, but it's a great pickup. And it was an audio clip that I thought you guys might enjoy. And then, there's some other things that are kind of interesting. So ESPN's Mike Clay has the Seattle offensive line ranked at 24. And I mean, that was surprising to me for no other reason than you had, the home run and the 2 tackles they picked up. And although they weren't great in, opening rushing lanes, I mean, Walker still had a great year, but they weren't awesome at opening rushing lanes, but they were actually pretty good in pass blocking because, I mean, Geno at the end of the day still ended up setting the Seahawks single season passing record in his, first year. So I really can't hate on the offensive line too much other than in the running game. They just were not super effective. But then they went and added, a veteran center, and then drafted a center and a guard. And for them to still be ranked so low on the offensive line is kind of a shock. But I have no doubt in my mind that as they move into the year, that the grading of the offensive line is definitely going to get better because the talent is higher, and they were ranked roughly around their last year with what they had. So I'm surprised that they don't think they're going to be a little bit better. Now, when you look at teams like San Francisco, who really didn't address the offensive line for some reason, that's a situation where they were also ranked low. In fact, the entire NFC West was ranked really 20th, between 20th and 32. Like, none of them had a good ranking for the offensive line. But teams like San Fran, that makes a ton of sense. They didn't really address it. Their quarterbacks were getting absolutely murdered back there. And when it comes to the Rams and the Cardinals, both of those teams had so many injuries on the offensive line. Both units, I think, had at least 10 weeks where they didn't start the same 5 guys in the same positions. So them being ranked low, that obviously makes a ton of sense because you really don't know what they have. They both picked up some players, but you don't know how they're going to gel. You don't know how they're going to play. You don't know if they're going to stay on the field, honestly. Excuse me. So them being ranked low kind of makes sense. The Hawks being ranked as low as they were was a little bit of a surprise. Not that I think they're going to be amazing. Similar to their defensive front, I think they're probably going to be somewhere in the 15th, 16th ranked offensive line, which, at the end of the day, if you can keep Geno clean, it allows him to make good decisions. And then if the new additions to this offensive line can open up a little bit of rushing lanes that they otherwise didn't have, that'd be a huge win for the Hawks. And so even if ESPN or Fox doesn't think that they are going to be a top unit, which I agree they're probably not, if they can at least build on what they were doing last year, they're going to be able to put up good numbers. They're probably actually still going to be down a little bit from last season just because the defenses they're going to play this year are going to be better. You don't get the luxury of playing the NFC South this year, who, none of those teams were very good. Granted, those were 4 losses for the Hawks last year, but they were still teams that you could move the ball on pretty easily. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. I don't think the numbers will be quite as good, but I do think that the units will be better. So that's kind of the way I look at that. And then, so that's going to be our show for today. I want to thank all of you for tuning in and jumping in the comments section. Be sure to like and subscribe. And other than that, we will see you next week. Enjoy your weekend, guys.